In carrying out its lightning offensive, the army had to tackle its biggest challenge, not the guns of the Pakistan army, but the terrain. Very few proper roads existed, and Indian tanks and armored personnel carriers would need to make riverine crossings through extremely deep and fast-moving rivers. Laying bridges across these wide expanses would be impossible, which is when a remarkable Russian tank came into its own. Criticized in the 1965 war for its light armor, the PT-76 was nonetheless fully amphibious, capable of fording rivers, at least on paper. No one, certainly not the designers of the tank, had ever tried anything like this, certainly not in Bangladesh.
The tank is beautiful. I don't think Russians have got such strong currents in their country to try it. But it floated, and we were good 20 minutes to 30 minutes in the water, floating slowly, and went across. I think this is the only time in Bangladesh war when a squadron of tanks ferried approximately 2 companies across. That will mean about 200.
While the army was making remarkable progress on the ground, the Indian Air Force and the Indian Navy also had a key role to play. Criticized in the 1965 war for not coming to the aid of the army for ground strafing runs often enough, the IAF was to decimate the Pakistan Air Force in the Eastern Theatre. By the second day of the war, the IAF's Eastern Air Command had neutralized the Pakistan Air Force, and though some of the PAF's dreaded Sabre jets survived the air battles, none of them were to have a significant impact over the scene of battles. Overwhelming air superiority meant that the Indian Army could continue its ground offensive without restrictions on movement and without the use of camouflage. The Navy too pitched in with air operations. Fighter bombers flying off the deck of the Navy's only aircraft carrier INS Vikrant, striking targets in Chittagong, Chalna, Mongla, Barisal and Cox's Bazar. The race for Dhaka had now begun. It was not a question of if, but when. Badly hit by the Indian Army, the tattered remnants of the Pakistan Army were retreating to Dhaka, their burned down vehicles abandoned, dead bodies littering the countryside. By the 11th of December 1971, the top brass of the army monitoring the progress of the war would have realized that the operations of the Indian Army had been successful. All that was left was taking Dhaka. In Dhaka itself, the tension was palpable. UN aircraft began touching down in the city to ferry out foreign nationals as the Indian Army launched its trump card, a battalion of the Parachute Brigade airdropped in the Tangail area. As the Indian Air Force kept up the momentum in its bombing raids, the puppet government in East Pakistan, governed by Dr. A.M. Malik, capitulated.
I got there after the first raid on the governor's house, which half destroyed the residence. Then I got there just after that. I found the governor in the bunker, in the guard, trembling like a leaf and saying, I didn't quite know whether to resign. Should I resign? Will my wife be killed by the Indian Army? Can I get at the Intercontinental Hotel? As we were standing there in this bunker, suddenly there was another raid. All hell broke loose. There was an enormous crash, and hardly the crash died down, but the governor suddenly produced a ballpoint pen, a scrap of paper, a few carbons, and had written out a resignation statement in a matter of seconds, just in time actually for the second big crash.
Lieutenant General A.A.K. Niazi realized it was all over. As the Indian Army entered Dhaka at 3 p.m., the crowds seemed delirious with joy. Indian soldiers were garlanded as thousands of people thronged to the streets. By then, Major General J.F.R. Jacob, the Chief of Staff of the Army Commander, Lieutenant General J.S. Aurora, had flown in with the draft instrument of surrender. Bangladesh was effectively an independent country. India had won an overwhelming victory.